Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. No.
It is.
Okay. Mr. Secretary, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Craig,
Present.
Commissioner Choma,
Present.
Commissioner Pintz, present, Commissioner Anselmi Dalton, Commissioner Glick. Here. Commissioner Hosey,
Absent, excused.
Commissioner Kaylee,
Here.
Commissioner Cott,
Here.
Commissioner Lawson,
Present.
Commissioner Bohr.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes from the August 5th workshop and the August 7th meeting? I assume everyone has.
Mr. Chairman,
Have there been any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the minutes from the meetings on Tuesday, August 5th and on Thursday, August 7th.
Is there a second? Did I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Anselmi Dalton made motion, Commissioner Glick second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Director,
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just real quick before we get started on the agenda, I wanted to introduce you guys to a new employee of ours in the construction division. I'd ask for Riley Otto to stand up. Riley came to us from the engineering consulting world, so he's been doing real life work, and he's a professional engineer with a degree in civil engineering. So just wanted to welcome to our group. He started in June and didn't make the trip out to Rock Springs, so wanted to introduce him in case you saw a new face around the office when we're working together. So just wanted to welcome him to our office and introduce him.
Commissioner, I just also want to welcome Riley. Thanks. It was fun working with you yesterday on the project.
All right, so with that, we'll move on to our planning consultant selection approvals. And the first one up would be in our new development level 1 projects, and that would be the Grover Water Master Plan.
any discussion on the Grover Water Master Plan? Do we have a motion to approve the consultant that was
Mr.
selected?
Chairman,
Mr. Choma?
I'd like to make a motion. The selection committee for the Grover Water Master Plan Level 1 project ranks the consulting firms interviewed in the following order. Forsgren Associates as number 1. I, Bob Choma, move the director to be instructed to begin contract negotiations with Forsgren Associates for consulting services on the Grover Water Master Plan Level 1 project with a recommended appropriation of $165,000.
Have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Commissioner Choma, seconded by Commissioner Pence. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to the Kimmer Diamondville Water Master Plan. We have a motion to approve the selection for consultant for the Kimmer Diamondville Water Master Plan.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner?
thank you. The selection committee for the Kimmer Diamondville Water Master Plan Level 1 project ranks the consulting firms interviewed in the following order. Number 1, Sunrise Engineering. 2, Jorgensen Associates. 3, Forsgren Associates. I, Lisa Anselmi Dalton, move the director be instructed to begin contract negotiations with Sunrise Engineering for consulting services on the Kimmer Diamondville Water Master Plan Level 1 project with a recommended appropriation of $292,000. Further, the selection committee offers the following suggestions to the director during contract negotiations. 1, include a focus leak detection task at a cost not to exceed $28,000 as part of the total project budget.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion been made by Commissioner Anselmi Dalton, second by Commissioner Kaylee. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on, Laramie Water Master Plan. With motion for selection of a consultant.
The selection committee for the Laramie Water Master Plan Level 1 project ranks the consulting firms interviewed in the following order. 1, Dowell. 2, WWDC Engineering. I, Dennis Pence, move the director be instructed to begin contract negotiations with Dowell for consulting services on the Laramie Water Master Plan Level 1 project with a recommended appropriation of $276,000.
Second.
Motion been made by Commissioner Pence, seconded by Commissioner Anselmi Dalton. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to the Medicine Bow Water Master Plan. We have a motion for selection of the consultant.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lawson.
Selection Committee for the Medicine Bow Water Master Plan Level 1 project ranks the consulting firms interviewed in the following order. Sunrise Engineering, KL&A Incorporated, and the third one is Tri-Hydro. I, John Lawson, move the director to be instructed to begin to contract negotiations with Sunrise Engineering for consulting services on the Medicine Bow Water Master Plan Level 1 project with a recommended appropriation of $174,000.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Lawson, second by Commissioner Glick. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Pine Bluffs Water Master Plan. We have a motion for a selection of consultant.
Mr. Chairman, the selection committee for the Pine Bluffs Water Master Plan Level 1 project ranks the consulting firms interviewed in the following order: HDR 1, IME 2. I, Ron Vore, move the director be instructed to begin contract negotiations with HDR for consulting services on the Pine Bluffs Water Master Plan Level 1 project with a recommended appropriation of $169,000.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Vore, second by Commissioner Anselmi Dalton. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Superior Water Master Plan. We have a motion for selection of a consultant.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Kaylee.
the selection committee for the Superior Water Master Plan Level 1 project ranks the consulting firms interviewed in the following order. Forsgren Associates, Sunrise Engineering. I, Ron Cayley, move the director be instructed to begin contract negotiations with Forsgren and Associates for consulting services on the Superior Water Master Plan Level 1 project with the recommendation appropriation of $259,000. Further, the selection committee offers the following suggestions to the director during contract negotiations. Accept scope alternative number 1 to include well video logs if necessary at a cost of $71,300.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Kaylee, second by Commissioner Choma. All
Mr.
in
Chair?
favor?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner.
was this a change of the order?
What's that?
Was this a change of the order or no?
Mr.
Correct,
Chairman,
Director?
Commissioner Anselmi Dalton, I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
I thought it was, I guess maybe I'm just tired from the long week. I thought it was the opposite.
Oh.
way. Is this? Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I just was confused between all my proposals and plans. I think, sorry about that. I just want to make
Okay.
sure. Thanks.
Commissioner Anselmi Dalton, did you think there was a error in the selection of the
That was your job.
consultants? I see. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, Worland Water Master Plan.
Chairman.
Commissioner Glick.
Selection Committee for the Worland Water Master Plan Level 1 project ranks the consulting firms interviewed in the following order. Number 1, WWDC Engineering. 2, Dow. 3, AVI. I, Clinton Glick, move the director be instructed to begin contract negotiations with WWC Engineering for consulting services on the Worland Water Master Plan Level 1 project with a recommended appropriation of $263,000. Further, the selection committee offers the following suggestions to the director during contract negotiations. Accept scope alternate number 1, reduced aquifer performance testing task 6, resulting in $150,000 savings to the total project cost.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Glick, seconded by Commissioner Pence. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yoder Water Master Plan. We have a motion for selection of a consultant.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Kaylee.
the selection committee for the Yoder Water Master Plan Level 1 project ranks the consulting firms interviewed in the following order. Number 1, Y2 Consultants. Number 2, AVIPC. Number 3, Andrew Miller Engineers. I, Ron Cayley, move the director be instructed to begin contract negotiations with Y2 Consultants for the consulting services on the Yoder Water Master Plan Level 1 project with a recommended appropriation of $214,000.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Kaylee, second by Commissioner Ansami Dalton. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Director?
Move on to the level 2 feasibility studies and account development.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion for approval of the selection of a consultant for Bedford Turnerville Regional Water Supply, new development?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Choma.
the selection committee for the Bedford and Turnerville Regional Supply Level 2 project ranks the consulting firms interviewed in the following order. Number 1, Sunrise Engineering. Number 2, Forest Green Associates. Number 3, HDR. I, Bob Choma, move the director be instructed to begin contract negotiations with Sunrise Engineering for consulting services on the Bedford and Turnerville Regional Supply Level 2 project with a recommended appropriation of $327,000. $327,000.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Choma, second by Commissioner Pence. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to the level 1 projects rehabilitation. Shoshone Irrigation District Master Plan. Do we have a motion for selection of a consultant?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Ansami Dalton.
Mr. Chair, the selection committee for the Shoshone Irrigation District Master Plan Level 1 project ranks the consulting firms interviewed in the following order. Number 1, JUB Engineers. Number 2, Staley Engineers. I, Lisa Ansami, move the director be instructed to begin contract negotiations with JUB Engineers for consulting services on the Shoshone Irrigation District Master Plan Level 1 project with a recommended appropriation of $470,000. Further, the selection committee offers the following suggestions to the director during contract negotiations. Negotiate cost reduction to task 3 so that the total project cost does not exceed $470,000.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Ansami Dalton, second by Commissioner Choma. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Kaylee, would you like to weigh in on this before we vote?
I'm probably gonna vote,
Mike?
oh, is it on? I'm looking at voting against the project only because of the, I think the low bidder on the project could have, was a kind of a newer company, and I thought that they would probably do a pretty good job on it and save a little bit of money, so that's kind of where I'm standing on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Choma. If anyone in the audience or any of their commissioners would like any other clarification of where Commissioner Kaylee stands and why he feels the way he does. We had a very lengthy discussion about this in our selection process yesterday and the disparity in the costs. And that's part of the reason, just for explanation, for the discussion about a line item conversation with the consultant when it comes time to actually contract. And I believe that, Barry, in the past, that has happened. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Director?
On now to level 2 projects and account 2 rehabilitation.
Okay, level 2 projects, rehabilitation, Casper Alcova Irrigation District lateral rehab. We have a motion for
Chairman,
selection. Commissioner Glick.
the selection committee for Casper Alcova Irrigation District lateral rehabilitation level 2 project ranks the consulting firms interviewed in the following order: 1, WWDC; 2, Western Heritage; 3, JUB. I, Clinton Glick, move the director be instructed to begin contract negotiations with WWC Engineering for consulting services on the Casper Alcova Irrigation District lateral rehabilitation level 2 project with a recommended appropriation of $308,000. Further, the selection committee offers the following suggestions to the director during contract negotiations. Number 1, accept scope alternate number 1 to use drone-based aerial imagery to supplement field observations along laterals at a cost of $15,000. 2, accept scope alternate number 2 to develop a standardized turnout structure design and rehabilitation guide to serve as a practical reference during future design, repair, and replacement activities at a cost of $10,000.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion by Commissioner Glick, seconded by Commissioner Lawson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Wheatland source transmission and transmission evaluation of a motion for selection of a consultant.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner?
the selection committee for the Wheatland's Source and Transmission Level 2 project ranks the consulting firms interviewed in the following order. Number 1, Civil Engineering Professionals Incorporated. Number 2, Engineering Associates. I, Ron Cayley, move the director be instructed to begin contract negotiations with Civil Engineering Professionals Incorporated for the consulting services on the Wheatland Source and Transmission Level 2 project with the recommended appropriation of $220,000.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion made by Commissioner Kaylee, second by Commissioner Glick. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. To the last one is in our other category, and that's the one in-stream flow study we have to complete for the Game and Fish Department.
Okay. Do we have a motion for selection of a consultant for the in-stream flow study?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Vore.
the selection committee for the Upper Green River Basin in-stream flow 2025 project ranks the consulting firms interviewed in the following order: Folum Hydrologic Solutions. As number one, I, Ron Vore, move the director be instructed to begin contract negotiations with Folum Hydrologic Solutions for consulting services on the Upper Green River Basin in-stream flows 2025 project with a recommended appropriation of $89,000.
Have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion by Commissioner Vore, second by Commissioner Glick. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That covers our consultant selection portion of the meeting. I'll turn it over to Director Mead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before we move on, I just want to express my appreciation to all the consulting firms that put in this year. Unfortunately, we can't give contracts to everybody, but it is a significant investment for those folks putting together proposals and preparing for interviews. So we do appreciate that. We've got a good group of good consultants in the state of Wyoming. So just want to express my appreciation for that. Next agenda item is planning closeout memos. First one being Bear Oil Master Plan, and we've got Keith Clary to provide that for us.
Water Master Plan, level one study for the town of Bear Oil, and it had appropriation of $147,000. The original contract was $146,215. The final contract amount was $123,203.94. The contract savings amount was $23,011.06. Town of Bear Oil resides in Sweetwater County in the Great Divide Basin. It has a population of 64 with 43 taps. The system's such that it has springs about 6.5 miles northwest, and that's their primary source of water. And it gravity flows to town through a 6.5 mile pipeline, and it's treated for chlorine just before it enters the tank. It's a 350,000 gallon tank, and then that supplies water to the town. There's also a well that's northwest of the springs, and they use that occasionally. It's a backup for the summer. In the winter time, with the snow and stuff, both the springs and the well are inaccessible pretty much, because it depends how much snow's up there. And there's currently no SCADA system. They have to manually turn the well on and turn it off, and also they have to do the chlorine dosage at the tank manually. So the findings for this findings and recommendation for this master plan are there's a few items for eligible WWDC projects, and the first and the most highest priority is replacing the pressure relief valves along the 6.5 mile pipeline, and that's for a cost of about $140,000. And beyond that, there's the spring transmission line, there's a tank transmission line, and then there's a well transmission line, and they have prices for each one of those from ranging from $2.5 million, $2.7 million for the spring transmission pipeline replacement in 2040 to 2041. Then the next item is the tank transmission line, and that's $760,000 in 2045, 2046. And a well transmission pipeline replacement in 2050, 2051 for 1.3 million in today's dollars, but who knows what it's going to be in 2050. Then they have a dozen or so projects of recommendations that are not eligible for WWDC fundings, and they're primarily dealing with in-town things and distribution system. And there's some operation and maintenance that needs to be critically taken care of. So there's a public presentation on April 2nd at the Bear Oil Town Hall. The WWDC recommends acceptance of the final report submittals and closing the consultant services contract. The WWDO further recommends proceeding to the next level of project development upon submittal of an appropriate funding application by the sponsor. The town of Bear Oil has not applied for additional WWDC funding at this time, but they intend to apply sometime in the future for the selected alternatives.
Thank you, Keith. Anyone have any questions? This does not require commission action, is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, there is a motion. It does require commission action. At the end of each project closeout, there's a suggested motion for the commission.
Okay,
Chairman,
Commissioner Glick.
I'd like to make a motion. I move acceptance of the Bear Oil Water Master Plan Level 1 Study Project Report as being complete, and further, the Wyoming Water Development Commission makes the following findings relative to the project. That the commission recommend proceeding to the next level of project development upon the submittal of an appropriate funding application by the sponsor.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Glick, second by Commissioner Pence. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the next closeout memo is for the Grable Valley Irrigation District Upper Sunshine Outlet Works Rehab, and we have Jennifer Russell from our construction department here to present that.
Welcome, Jennifer.
Morning. As Jason mentioned, I'm here to present the closeout memo for the Grable Valley Upper Sunshine Outlet Works Rehab Level 2 study. This was an appropriation from the 2023 session. It took a little more time than most projects do just because of the nature of the field work that needed to be done. The original contract amount was for $620,828 and some cents. The final contract amount was $464,794.92 for a savings of a little over $156,000, which was a savings of about 25%. The overall project was to look at the outlet works. The dam was built in 1939. Much of the original equipment is still in use. And as I'm talking through this, it might be helpful to kind of have a picture in your head of what the dam is. You've got the embankment, you got an intake structure at the upstream side with a gate on it, a conduit, and then a control building. That was all original to 1939. The control building downstream at the time had 5 different branches on it, so they could control, fine tune the flows to what they needed to let out. Some hydraulic issues arose, and in the 1970s, they blocked off 4 of those branches, extended one of them, and put on what's called a fixed cone valve, which allows for fine tuning with just one valve. Some issues have come up primarily on the upstream side with that slide gate. It's actually a wheel gate, so it's got wheels on it, and it's on an incline. It's got a cable. They go up, they have a hoist there to raise it up, and then to let it down, they just kind of let the cable out, and gravity pulls the gate down. 1939, it doesn't work so well. They're not sure they can get it closed right now because it's corroded. There's sediment issues. And why that gate valve or that gate is important is not only is it kind of the emergency, something's going on with downstream and they need to just shut off everything, but also it's impossible to get in there now and do a good inspection on it. So that was kind of the focus when we went into the study. We looked at other things as well. They sent a diver down through the conduit. The water was like pea soup, so they had to do pretty much everything by hand. And they also set down a sonar ROV, basically to see if the pipe is still pretty much round and to see if there's any issues that could be picked up with the sonar. Also take a look at the downstream side, the control building. The original 1939 gate valve that's on the downstream side has a continuous stream of water coming out of it, whether it's open or closed. They've repacked it, they've done maintenance on it. It still shoots out enough water that you could almost take a shower with it. So that's the overall picture that we looked at. Came up with 3 alternatives for the downstream side and the conduit, including The simplest was just replacing that gate valve with a knife valve, which would involve some changes to the downstream building as well. And then slip lining the conduit. Another one was a more extensive changes to the valves and downstream and a heavier duty conduit. On the upstream side, looked at two different options to replace that existing wheel valve. One was to put in a new wheel valve, and the other was to modify the structure a little bit. The concrete structure itself is in fairly good condition, and put in a slide gate that was hydraulically actuated, so we no longer have to rely on gravity to get it closed. And the conduit itself, there weren't any obvious issues. However, because they couldn't do a really good visual investigation of it, we're not 100% certain. You know, I'm a PE. I would not want to be the one to put a stamp on it saying this is going to last another 50 years. So because of the costs of doing the downstream items, including relining that conduit, the most important issue has always been that upstream structure. So because of the costs and other issues involved, it was determined that the preferred alternative for now is to just concentrate on that upstream structure and fix it. This will allow them to drain the reservoir, because this is, below 140 feet of water. It's possible to do construction without draining the reservoir, but they'll allow them to drain the reservoir, work on that, actually walk through the conduit, make sure everything's okay. And it'll also allow the district time to figure out some more financing. Just doing the upstream structure is estimated at about $2.6 million. Doing everything else adds a few more $1 million, depending on which option you're looking at. It could be as much as a total project of 16 million. So this allows some time, gets the safety issue taken care of with that upstream section, and lets us get on our way. I'm in the construction division, so I'm not used to doing this. So. Sorry, our recommendation is to accept the study that was done. We did have a public hearing. There was no opposition, and it was determined that the project functions and services cannot realistically be provided by any person, association, or corporation engaged in private enterprise. Therefore, we recommend proceeding to the next level of the project development upon submittal of an appropriate funding application by the sponsor.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner and Summerall.
Mr. Chairman and Director, and so Jennifer, I hate to do this, but I have some concerns about this project. First of all, I'd like to know, I didn't see, and I didn't have my old notes because they got caught up in the flood, but how many users are served by this and how many acres? I mean, we start at 2.6 million and then we get up to possible 16 million. The last project, I kind of voted a soft no, just because in Barrow, it's $93,750 potentially per person that lives there. I mean, we're getting to costs that are outrageous. I mean, at what point does it really serve the public interest is my question. So maybe you don't, maybe Jennifer, the director knows, or someone knows how many users, how many acre feet are stored. If we drain the dam, it's a big issue with Fontenelle. If we drain the dam, about the fish and the wildlife, on and on we go. So I'm just asking, this seems to be a pretty big merry-go-round we're getting on.
I'm going to have to phone a friend, and that's Skylar from Stantec, who is the consultant on the project, about the number of acres.
Director, could I weigh in on that?
Yes.
Commissioner and Somodol, not necessarily to give you peace of mind, I'm going to give you a little bit of a picture. This is in Port County above Meeteetse. I'm fairly familiar with this. Upper Sunshine Reservoir is an off-stream reservoir on the Graybull River. It's a primary water supply for everything downstream clear to Graybull itself, to the town of Graybull. Serves the Emblem Bench, everything from that reservoir to the town of Meeteetse and down the river. I don't have a number of acres, but I will tell you there are probably no less than 150 irrigators and maybe in the neighborhood of 40 or 50,000 acres. Now that's a WAG, but it's not a small project. It's also only one of a series of 3 reservoirs that supply water to that irrigation project. It's fairly large and does supply water to a fairly large number of people. If you wanted, better numbers, I'm certain they could get them, but that just gives you the 10,000-foot view of it.
Thank you, Chair, and that helps. I just worry. I mean, it's just a lot of money and money's tight. And the one thing that concerned me is that in the memo, you indicated that it wasn't eligible for other types of funding. Is it eligible for any kind of funding besides us? It said not the Board of Public Utilities, right? Not eligible for FEMA, U.S. Board of Reclamation, NRCS, or others. I mean,
It just fell into that category where it's not attached to a Bureau of Reclamation facility. So Bureau of Reclamation money is pretty much out of the picture. With the NRCS, they're looking at better use of water rather than just having the structure working like it's supposed to. Game and Fish actually does use the reservoir, and that's one of the reasons why we couldn't drain it to do the inspection, is because the district has to pay a restocking fee to Game and Fish if they drain the reservoir. This drains directly into Lower Sunshine. So, in wet years, they can get by without it. In dry years, they cannot. They need that extra water. And I just wrote up the recommendation for the next project. And so the numbers are back here in the brain, but they will have to raise their rates for the assessments. However, it is doable. The reason why we're not jumping into that next project is because they would have to raise their rates so much that it's not feasible at this moment in time. However, if they were to get in there and after they drain the reservoir to do this work and see that there's something wrong with, for example, the conduit, and that's going to require a lot of work, then that gives them some time to try to figure out some things. With FEMA, this isn't a high enough problem area, I guess you could say, for FEMA. But we have a table in the report where Stantec went through and they looked at the different outside funding things, and some were just, no, it just doesn't apply. So unfortunately, that's where we stand with it.
Thanks, Jennifer. And Chairman, just one quick add-on. I appreciate that help. And I think yesterday we had a chart in one of my presentations where they went through a lot of the different types of funding sources, which is great. And hopefully we're looking at that because obviously there's a lot of users, but raising rates on all isn't always where we want to land either, making it very difficult for these people. But hopefully we can find some other sources at the end of the day and to work with them. So thanks and appreciate that help, Jennifer.
For this next phase with just doing the intake structure, my recollection is that the average assessment for just the stored water went from, I want to say, like $5.50 up to around $7 an acre foot. So because there is such a large number of acres being involved, they are able to kind of spread it out.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vore.
I'm curious what the balance of the Grable Valley Irrigation District system condition is. And also did this particular facility within that system, did it land somewhere on the aging infrastructure review?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have Chase Tavelli come up and talk about that for a second if you've got a good answer for that.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I'm assuming you're all tired, so I'll try to be brief. For the critical aging irrigation infrastructure study, dams were not mixed in with the other infrastructure in the state. And the reason why is because we made a decision, a conscious decision, that that's the purview of the state engineer's office to rate those structures. And we did not want to meddle in their business to be short. However, it's arguable that any dam in the state, just because of the amount of infrastructure and acreage below, if we were to apply the same type of ranking and give, this a failing condition, it would rank very high, just from what I'm listening to here. So dams were not, the dams are in an appendix of this study, but they were not necessarily ranked in with diversions and head gates and drop structures and siphons and checks. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm assuming that Grable Valley is continually doing some rehab work and different things on their system. And I guess what I'm driving to is this sort of the next big item that they have to deal with that allows them access to their storage facility?
Oops, sorry. They have been keeping up on maintenance, but this is the next big thing. Like I said, this dam was built in 1939. When you compare that with Roach Gulch, when I can remember in my professional career when that was built. So it's the next best big thing. Kind of the next step after that is probably going to be the control building at this reservoir. After we get in there and see what needs to be done to the conduit. Because depending on what needs to be done to the conduit, that affects what we do at the control building as well. They're kind of tied together. So I could, just if you're kind of looking down the road, what might be coming up after they do the intake structure, probably that. I don't know how things are at Lower Sunshine. It's a newer dam, I believe. So, but yeah.
Mr.
Sorry.
Chairman.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would point out too that GVID, or Grable Valley Irrigation District, is really just set up to manage the 3 reservoirs. It doesn't get into the actual irrigation conveyance systems and all that. And I don't recall how that's laid out, if that's individual canal companies or actually special districts. So they only deal with these 3 reservoirs. Yeah. The other thing I would say that this highlights, and we continue to see, I think, is the fact that the districts that do own reservoirs and the lack of a sinking fund that has been put away over the years to address these replacement type items in the future. So it's something we really need to continue to stress, especially on our new reservoirs that we're participating in, that we don't want to just build them and then forget about them and then 50 years be back to replace outlet works. We need to put some money aside, and it's not so painful when those replacements need to be made.
Thank you, Jennifer. Do you have anything else to add? Anyone have any other questions? If I would have a comment that I'd hate to hog all of our annual tours on irrigation projects in the Bighorn Basin, but maybe we should go to Meeteetse next year and look at the system, the upper lower Sunshine Reservoirs and Roach Gulch, and have everyone understand how that system intertwines. The Joint Powers Board process they have to go through to manage that water and the multiple irrigation districts involved. It's pretty complex. And just a food for thought. But as far as where we're at right now for this to proceed, we do not have an application in hand for funding for the repair at this point. We're just reviewing the closeout memo. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct, but they have, in November, we will be discussing an application for this intake structure replacement, because they have submitted an application for the construction of that as of the September 1 deadline.
Okay, everyone understands then. Today we're voting on the closeout memo. Any more questions for Jennifer?
Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion. Commissioner Glick,
Chairman. I'd like to make the motion. I move acceptance of the GVID Upper Sunshine Outlet Works Rehab Level 2 Study Project Report as being complete, and further, the Wyoming Water Development Commission makes the following findings relative to this project. Number one, that the commission recommend proceeding to level 3 of project development upon the submittal of an appropriate funding application by the sponsor. 2, based on the findings in the final report, the project is determined to be in the public interest. 3, the project functions and services cannot realistically be provided by any person, association, or corporation engaged in private enterprise.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Glick, second by Commissioner Choma. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next project closeout is for the Hudson Water Master Plan. I'd invite George Mosier up.
Welcome, George.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you. George Mosier with the Water Development Office Planning Division. Today, for your consideration, is closing out a project for the Hudson Water Master Plan. A memo summarizing that can be found on page 20 of your e-notebook PDF. This is a water master plan that was funded by the 2024 legislative session with an appropriation of $210,000. HDR Engineering was selected to perform the consulting services, and after final billing, we ended up with a project cost savings of about $16,400. For those of you that don't know, Hudson is located just approximately between Lander and Riverton, kind of at the confluence of the Little Poposia and the Poposia, and they really had not had a study to look at much of their critical infrastructure in their system since about 2009. They have a population of a little less than 500 people. Average per capita water use floats in the high, 177 gallons per day per person. Through the course of the study, we identified that they had about 30% what I'm calling non-revenue water. And the reason I'm saying non-revenue is that probably fits into two different categories for Hudson, right? There's probably some actual leaks, but there's also some aging meters, right? The water that's actually being delivered just can't be accounted for and sold. Through the course of this study, Hudson independently had some money through SRF to replace and upgrade a bunch of their service meters. Unfortunately, that work happened very late in the course of this study, finalized, in fact, this year. So we weren't able to really pull that into this study, but I suspect that they would see that 30% number decline. They were replacing meters that were 20 and 30 years old, so they were likely underreporting. Hudson uses really shallow alluvial wells right next to the Little Poposia. Those wells are really shallow in alluvial material, considered groundwater under direct influence of surface water for EPA treatment standards, so they do use a surface water treatment plant. They have storage consisting roughly of 2 tanks up on the hill, kind of to the southeast of town. If you drive through that valley, you can see 3 tanks sitting up there. 2 of those are potable water storage tanks, and the 3rd tank actually supports a raw water system. They have a well that's located in town, pumps up to one of those tanks, and then ultimately supplies the cemetery and some other green spaces through town. The study really found several issues related to functionality of the water treatment plant, and keeping in mind that under a level 1 water master plan, we can look at certain components of the water treatment. It may not be something ultimately that's eligible for funding or assistance on the construction side when we get there, but we do take a cursory look at those things. one of the big things for their treatment plan is that it's really complex, and they do have proprietary membranes. So sourcing those membranes can be a problem for them. It takes a couple month delay. They've got to get them out of a manufacturer in Europe. So one of the recommendations is, of course, to move to something more generic for them. Also, they have some corrosion of some valving in their water storage tanks, which is things that just as an O&M process they could upgrade and repair. So the study really identified 8 different projects of priority for Hudson. For your thoughts, I could put those into 3 broad categories. Well improvement projects. They have a couple of wells that don't appear to be performing really at all. So recommendation is to hire a pump servicing company to come in and take a look at those, see if they need to be rebuilt or replace what needs to happen there in order to improve the functionality. Also probably look at rehabilitating some of those wells. We noticed during measuring water level changes during pump cycles that some of those wells are not as efficient as they were when they were originally completed. So probably think about some rehabilitation techniques on some of those to improve their performance. Also, I've kind of hinted at this before, there's a number of different things that they can operationally do to improve some of the process in their water treatment plant. And also some of the storage components, replacing blow-off valves, that kind of thing. And a couple of loops in town in their distribution system in order to improve fire flow. The study really found a lot of concerns through the public and through the users with water quality, and that's related to the wells that are shallow alluvial wells, and just limitations of what you can really do to treat that water. Ultimately, I think what you'll find is that this study is probably going to lead to a level 2 investigation of more further refining what a regional system with Lander might look like. There's been some discussion from the Lander Water Master Plan of looking at what regionalization, maybe a pipeline through Lyons Valley, a connection with Hudson would look like. There are a couple of different alternatives for the way that pipeline could be aligned, and I would honestly expect for the commission to consider that next spring, probably Lander and Hudson would be considering some sort of joint application for a planning study to look at what a level 2 feasibility for a regional system would look like for those folks. There was a public report presentation at the Hudson Town Hall. It was not a hearing, but we did have significant turnout and a lot of comment, and some of those comments again were with, what do we do for palatability and trying to find a little bit better drinking water. The office recommends acceptance of the final report submittals and recommends closing the consultant services contract. The second page of the memo at the very bottom has a proposed motion for your consideration. And if you do have any questions about the study or Hudson, I would be happy to entertain those.
Thank you, George. Anyone have questions? Commissioner Glick.
Make the motion. I move acceptance of the Hudson Water Master Plan Level 1 project report as being complete, and further, the Wyoming Water Development Commission makes the following findings relative to this project. That number 1, that the commission recommend proceeding to the next level of project development upon the submittal of an appropriate funding application by the sponsor.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Glick, second by Commissioner Choma. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I might also mention too, we just started the Middle Poposia Level 2 feasibility study looking at potential for more storage up in the Middle Poposia drainage, and that the, I guess, regionalization concept is also being thought about in that study as well, because we're looking for late season supplemental irrigation water, but also potential future water use needs from the municipalities of mainly Lander. But as George mentioned from that master plan, there's been some thought given to what areas of either Lander that are kind of rural sprawl or these close towns nearby that could be brought in the regional system. So hopefully we'll be able to provide some additional information if they come in the spring for a level 2 feasibility study. All right, so the next closeout memo is the Lakeview Irrigation District Rehab Level 2 study, and we have Cheyenne Love to present that. You have to push it.
I press
And
it.
we are
Okay.
on page 22.
Hello, members of the commission, Mr. Chairman, Cheyenne Love. I'm a project manager here with the Planning Division of Water Development. Presenting to you today a few closeout memos, but starting off with the Lakeview Irrigation District Rehabilitation Level 2 study. As Director Mead mentioned, this is on page 22 of your e-notebook. The Lakeview Irrigation District diverts direct flows from the South Fork Shoshone River with 28 miles of main canal and several laterals that service roughly 10,200 irrigated acres. The appropriation for this project was $160,000 under the 2023 legislative session. Consultant was Engineering Associates. The contract amount was $159,500. Following the final pay request, the contract savings was $14,728.84. So this study, the main goal was to evaluate system efficiency with the primary goal of eliminating late season shortages within the Lakeview Irrigation District. And that was completed under two main tasks, a seepage analysis and analyzing a potential for water exchange with the Cody Canal Irrigation District. So the seepage analysis was conducted on two reaches on the upper canal and then one reach on the lower canal. And all of those sort of showed differing variability in the loss, seepage loss. Multiple conveyance routing alternatives were considered as options for that water exchange with Cody Canal. The Coons lateral was identified as being the most feasible. However, the consultant acknowledged that there would be pretty high infrastructure costs associated in developing that lateral for exchange purposes. So this study looked at multiple improvement options to address the seepage loss within those focus areas, those reaches that were identified, as well as assessing the feasibility for that interdistrict water exchange between Lakeview and Cody Canal. So those options you can see were as follows. They looked at geomembrane canal liner, non-reinforced concrete canal liner, and reinforced concrete canal liners, all with differing costs associated with lining those seepage areas, and then also the exchange storage and pipeline, which was identified as the Coons lateral. So that cost total is for the Coons lateral alternative. There was a public hearing held on July 14th at the Park County Library, in Cody. And the recommendation from the office is acceptance of the final report submittals and closing of the consultant services contract. And on the bottom of that second page, there's a motion for your consideration, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Anyone have any questions for Cheyenne? Hearing none, can we have a motion? Commissioner Glick?
I'd like to make the motion. Oh, hold on, my card fell. Gotta make sure everybody knows who I am. Excuse me. The Lakeview Irrigation District Rehabilitation Level 2 study analyzed multiple improvement options to address seepage loss within the focus areas, as well as assess the feasibility for interdistrict water exchange between LID and CCID. Specific options are as follows.
Mr. Chairman,
Director?
you might be reading the wrong part.
Yep, I am reading wrong.
Okay.
Right.
Sorry.
Give me a break. All right. I move acceptance of the Lakeview Irrigation District Rehabilitation Level 2 Study Project Report as being complete, and further, the Wyoming Water Development Commission makes the following findings relative to the project. Number one, that the commission recommend proceeding to level 3 of project development upon the submittal of an appropriate funding application by the sponsor. Number two, based on the findings in the final report, the project is determined to be in the public interest. 3, the project functions and services cannot really realistically be provided by any person, association, or corporation engaged in private enterprise.
We have a motion, we have a second. Motion by Commissioner Glick, second by Commissioner Anselmi Dalton, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank
And
you,
I, and I
Shane.
was getting ready to read the book.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next closeout memo is the Midvale Irrigation District Master Plan, and we're going to get used to hearing from Cheyenne because she's going to do this one and the next one. So take it away, Cheyenne.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, you guys have to listen to me for a while this morning, but we're almost there. So as Director Mead mentioned, this is presenting the closeout memo for the Midvale Irrigation District Master Plan Level 1 study. This can be found on page 24 of your e-notebook. The Midvale Irrigation District is the largest contiguous Wyoming irrigation district. It services 73,684 irrigated acres with 984 water users. It's supplied by the Wind River, which is diverted into the system at the Wind River Diversion Dam, where Wyoming Canal conveys water to a point near the Pilot Butte Reservoir, where we go into Pilot Canal. So the Wyoming Canal services the northern portion of the district, with the Pilot Canal servicing the southern. The appropriation for this project was $409,000. Consultant was Tri-Hydro Corporation. Contract amount was again $409,000. Following the final pay request, the savings for that project was $44.28. So the study under goals were to identify the future direction for operations for the Midvale Irrigation District and prioritize capital improvement projects. So this included inventory, SCADA analysis, the rehab and management plan, and then cost estimates. So recommendations under this study primarily focused on the district remaining proactive in project implementation. They're pretty active with that in between these master plans, and so they mainly boiled down to keeping that going. And then the specific projects could be pretty much placed under 4 categories, which you can see there. Structure, rehabilitation, and replacement components. There were 50 structures identified for replacement or rehab under this study that totaled close to $28 million. SCADA improvement components, there were 16 existing site and then 4 new site SCADA improvements identified for about $562,000. Canal and lateral improvement components, 9 ditch to pipe conversion projects, and 4 canal lining projects were identified for rehab, totaling almost $65 million. And then the re-regulation reservoir component, the Sand Gulch re-regulation reservoir was mainly looked at, sort of extrapolated out from the 2007 study that was conducted for Midvale. So they weren't, the district wasn't looking to pursue that at this point in time, but they wanted to keep the option on the table in case they wanted to look at that in the future. So extrapolated out to 2025 costs, Tri-Hydro estimated that at almost $11 million. And then just to mention this, diversion dam, with the inclusion of diversion headgate, was identified as the highest priority individual project for the district. But due to the complexity and the scale of that structure, it was the recommendation of the consultant for the district to pursue a level 2 study for diversion dams specifically, which I think the district is interested in and will be looking at pursuing that work in the near future. So there was a public report presentation, not a hearing, on July 17th at Midvale Irrigation District. The recommendation is to approve acceptance of final report submittals and closing of the consultant services contract. There's a proposed motion for your consideration, and I'd stand for any questions.
Anyone have any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Gore.
hate to be redundant, But where did these projects land on the aging infrastructure study? And Chase was already getting up, so.
That's fine. I anticipated that question coming up. Chase, do you want to? No, okay.
I'll assume the director's chair. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, good morning. I assume everybody's tired, so I'll try to be brief.
I think we've been here.
I can tell you Diversion Dam itself was ranked in the top 30. I meant to look it up this morning to see what that cost estimate was, but obviously, well, it would be my anticipation that that cost estimate will be off for what was determining critical aging. But yes, it is. The diversion dam itself it's one of the higher ranking structures in the state of Wyoming. If you think about 70,000 acres downstream, Midvale is the largest irrigation district in the state. That's going to be significant. Plus, it's a massive structure. And it is in poor condition I don't think they called it failing. Did they call it failing? I can't remember now. We have to see the update from the study to update the critical aging database. As for the other 50 structures, I am unaware of where they, what structures those are and where they would end up. Yeah, diversion dam is about 12th on the list for the entire 10,891 structures that were part of the critical aging database.
Thank you, Chase. Anyone have any other questions for Chase or Cheyenne? We have a motion. Commissioner Click?
Yeah,
Oh,
I have a question for you. When you guys do your studies, do you look at like other people? Like I know the tribes were planning on using their futures water down below the diversion and the Wyoming Canal diversion, and I was just wondering if you guys put that in your studies. That's a question, just a question.
Yeah, Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, great question. I believe I didn't have that information readily available at this point, but I believe Tri-Hydro did include tribal usage of water in the study, at least as a general overview of what that would look like in regard to Midvale and the district itself.
Any other questions? Commissioner Glick?
I'll make a motion. I move acceptance of the Midvale Irrigation District Master Plan Level 1 Study Project Report as being complete, and further, the Wyoming Water Development Commission makes the following findings relative to the project. Number 1, that the commission recommend proceeding to next level of project development upon the submittal of an appropriate funding application by the sponsor.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Glick, second by Commissioner Pence. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a comment.
Mr. Pence?
I'd like to thank Cheyenne and Chase for recognizing Midvale is the largest irrigation district in the state of Wyoming. So whenever we're in a large crowd with select water and the building's full and a guy corrects me, would you stand up and say, he was right?
Thank you for that, Commissioner Pence.
All right, the last project closeout memo is the Sinclair Water Master Plan.
Okay, great. So last closeout memo from me this morning. Director Meade said this is for the Sinclair Water Master Plan Level 1 study. This can be found on page 26 of the e-notebook. The town of Sinclair serves approximately 400 people through 231 taps. The town receives treated water supplied by the city of Rawlins under a joint powers agreement that was entered into in 2002. The system consists of a 500,000 gallon storage tank supplying one distribution pressure zone. So the appropriation for this project was $147,000. The consultant selected being Western Water Consultants Incorporated. Contract amount was $146,700. Following the final pay request, the savings was $31,301.12. So the study's goals were to inventory the town system, recommend improvements, and evaluate system finances. This included evaluating the current state of water sources and then investigating water supply alternatives for the town. So those water supply alternatives under this study were determined to be the development of a groundwater supply for the town at about $10 million, the development of the river supply, which would include an intake and then a new water treatment plant at $16 million. And then the third one being the construction of a direct transmission line from the Rollins water treatment plant back to the town. So that was the lowest cost at $9 million. However, it was recommended per the consultant that the most cost-effective and feasible thing for the town would be to remain a customer of the city of Rollins in the water exchange. There was an acoustic leak survey detected. There was only one isolated suspected leak on the water main, and that was included under the project recommendations for the town. The hydraulic model showed that the town was compliant with regulations and fire flows, but there are water age concerns in regard to the storage tank and the water that's being held there. So the projects for replacement and improvement were the 5 that you can see there. The water main upgrades priority 1, which included that segment where the very small leak was detected. Water tank mixer and a chlorine booster station. That was sort of to help with the water age concerns in the town. Water main upgrades priority 2. So that was another segment of Sinclair's water mains that were identified for a need of upgrade. A water tank repaint, and then a water meter replacement. So the total project cost for all of those together is roughly $9 million, and they're not considered to be WWDC eligible. So that would require outside funding sources, which the consultant helped the town identify. So there was a public report presentation on July 9th at Sinclair Town Hall. The recommendation is to accept final report submittals and closing of the contract. There's a proposed motion for your consideration, and I would be happy to stand for any questions.
Anyone have any questions? We have a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Choma,
I move acceptance of the Sinclair Water Master Plan Level 1 Study Project Report as being complete, and further, the WWDC makes the following findings relative to this project: that the commission recommend terminating further consideration of the proposed project.
do we have a second? Motion by Commissioner Choma, second by Commissioner Lawson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is planning contract amendments. The first one is a Clear Creek Storage Level 2 Phase 2. This is amendment number 9 to the contract with with Stantec Consulting Services. We're basically looking to extend this by an additional 6 months. This project's been languishing for some time. It is a fairly expensive project. The Upper Bull Creek Reservoir site has been identified as a preferred alternative moving forward, but it's a $100+ million project. Several years ago, we were hopeful that some of the Water Resource Development Act language was going to lend itself to the state of Wyoming being able to get some federal funds for reservoirs. That passed, but no funding was ever put in place for that particular program through the Corps of Engineers. So with the new administration and some of the funding we've used on other projects, NRCS, watershed flood prevention and operation might be an opportunity. And I think there's some things with the new administration coming out on how much more funding will be coming into those programs. So really just wanting a little bit of additional time, wanting to wrap this up, but to understand what other funding sources are out there, circle back with the potential beneficiaries and future sponsors, and kind of put a bow on this thing and figure out how we're going to move forward, what's feasible, and who's going to be the group that's going to move forward with it if they so choose. And then I would expect maybe next spring we might see another application to move forward, or depending if it's deemed that it's probably not affordable, then maybe it'll end up on the shelf for a while. But basically looking for a 6-month extension to figure some of those things out.
Anyone have any questions for the director? Commissioner Anselmi Dalton? Is there a question?
No. Mr. Chair, I have a motion.
Have a motion?
Okay, Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve amendment number 9 to Clear Creek Storage Study Level 2, Phase 2 contract to extend the contract expiration date with Stantec Consulting from December 31st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026.
Have a second? Motion by Commissioner Anselmi Dalton, second by Commissioner Vore. Kaylee. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next one is the Central Wyoming Regional Water System Well Field Level 2 Study, Amendment number 1. I'll kick this to George.
Mr. Chair, good morning again. I have for the Commission's consideration a contract amendment for a Level 2 planning study. The memo summarizing results so far and a path forward you'll find on page 34 of the e-notebook. What we are proposing under this contract is to amend the original contract. It's not to add any additional money, purely to add additional time. To step back for a second, I think it's important to understand that Central Wyoming Regional is kind of the wholesale provider of water for much of Casper and in the surrounding area of Casper. So this wellfield study, we are looking at evaluating what their rehabilitation path forward for these wells ought to be, where they could develop additional supply of water, how they should more effectively manage their recharge basins, look a little bit at some of the infiltration gallery infrastructure. And the reason for the delay in this is that Central Wyoming Regional actually was successful in obtaining some ARPA funds to evaluate and rehabilitate some of their larger capacity facilities in this area. Broadly speaking, they operate 2 well fields, which are kind of adjacent to one another, but we're talking about 26 vertical wells and 3 lateral wells or rainy collector wells. The ARPA funds were set aside and they ultimately did do a rehabilitation effort using those other funds on the rainy collector wells to improve their productive capacity. And as part of the study, we really wanted to understand what that rehabilitation could offer for production improvements within the well fields. We also dovetailed onto that some work that the Central Wyoming Regional did on their own to dry up some of those areas where they enhance recharge through their well fields. They have a whole series of canals basically where they can pump water. It allows the water to infiltrate down through the gravels and recharge the local aquifer in that area. So Central Wyoming Regional dried up those areas. They basically disturbed that soil a little bit in order to break up the fine grained material, hopefully improve that permeability. So we were able to collect some additional information as part of that to suggest what the management for those recharge areas ought to be off into the future. They also used a little bit of money to go and investigate their historic infiltration gallery, which was a large source of supply for them. So all of those things together really represent additional efforts by the sponsor, by Central Wyoming Regional, to try to improve that and also hopefully fold those results into the recommendations for the study. Honestly, I think that it will lead to a more robust study and better interpretation of how the well field is working mechanically and help provide some good recommendations for how regional should move off into the future with their well field management. So what we are proposing today is to extend the current contract. It currently expires December 31st, 2025. Would like to add a couple of years to that. June 30th, 2027 is what we are proposing. And if there are any specific questions for the sponsor, I believe Ethan Yonker is online. The consultant for this planning project is Engineering Associates, and Dave Engels is the project manager. I believe he is also online. I suspect between the three of us, we could try to answer any question that the commission might have. If you are interested, there is a proposed motion on the bottom of the memo page on page 34.
Anyone have any questions? We have a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Cayley.
I move that the commission approve the First Amendment to the Central Wyoming Regional Water System Wellfield Level 2 study to extend the contract to June 30th, 2027.
Motion by Commissioner Cayley, second by Commissioner Anselmi Dalton. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The third and last planning amendment would be on the Green River, Little Snake River Basin's conveyance loss study. I'd ask Chase to come up and give a brief explanation on that.
Mr. Chair, Commission, good morning. This amendment is an extension of time from December 31st, 2025 to December 31st of 2026. The original schedule was expedited, and a big piece of the conveyance loss study is the measurement of flows upstream and downstream in a canal to determine the conveyance losses through, seepage, for example. It was an unanticipated difficult time to get landowner participation and access to find ditches throughout the Green River Basin that were representative of the basin. And so we missed all of last summer trying to get measurements in. However, we were able to secure landowner agreements to get on and put in some measurement devices, and those measurements were taken this year. And in order to afford our consultants some time to complete the study and validate data and crunch numbers and develop a tool, we are asking to extend the contract date a year, the conclusion date. Thank you, Chase. Anyone have any questions? Commissioner Cott? Commissioner Cott, proceed.
Approve the First Amendment to the Green River Little Snake Basin Conveyance Loss Level 1 study for 1 year.
Do I have a second? Motion by Commissioner Cott, second by Commissioner Glick. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next agenda item is the groundwater exploration grant contract amendment for Happy Valley. And have George up here again. We are on page 43.
George?
Mr. Chair, thank you.
I was trying to find things on my screen here.
That's quite all right. I was waiting. For the commission's consideration today is a second amendment to a groundwater exploration grant contract with Happy Valley. Now is probably a really good time for me to back up and talk a little bit about what groundwater exploration grant is. So we drill wells a couple of different ways through the water development program. Some of the more common ones are either through a traditional planning level 2 study, where water development would contract with a consultant, and that consultant would perform all of the consulting services, and including hiring the well contractor and do all of the testing. Groundwater exploration grant is a little bit different in that the commission's contract is actually directly with the sponsor. So the sponsor, in effect, is they are absorbing some of the risk of the success or failure of this. If the well doesn't turn out as good as they had liked, they still own it. And so it's important to understand also that that funding structure means that the groundwater exploration grant has a separate legislative block appropriation. Right now, the balance in that account is about $1.2 million. So, this project in total was projected to be about a $400,000 project under groundwater exploration grant. Typically, we fund those things at a 75% grant, and the sponsor is on the hook for 25% of it, and that's their contribution to the project. And they, like I said before, they own it at the end. This particular groundwater exploration grant was approved during the January 2022 meeting, and we did extend it once previously. Happy Valley itself is located a few miles south of Afton, and I think one of the neat things about this project in the groundwater exploration grant component is that Happy Valley and Osmond had a level 2 study that kind of evaluated what it would look like to combine those two systems, fold it into one larger entity, develop a public water system for those folks. The Happy Valley folks approached the Water Development Commission and asked for a groundwater grant project because they were reliant on springs that were really not as productive. Happy Valley had 2 springs that were lower in production. Osmond had 1 larger spring. And as a community, they thought the value would be in, let's redevelop that larger spring from Osmond. So the Osmond folks are kind of bringing a large spring into the portfolio, and the Happy Valley folks would be responsible for bringing a well. And this groundwater grant is the tool that they're using to kind of pull that all together, fold together the larger district. I should mention also that Happy Valley may be on your mind because you heard about a change to their construction project during the last meeting. And that was the component of upgrading the pipeline, rehabilitating that pipeline, installing a storage tank that's part of that greater Osmond system. So that was kind of the large spring component, and here we are today talking about the well component. This particular project, they have now developed an initial set of plans to go out to bid. The SRF folks have reviewed those plans and tech specs and provided a first round of comments. I've additionally provided a first round of comments. My thought here is that we are probably very close to being able to advertise for bid for a drilling contractor. In recognition, though, that this expires, here very shortly, we are recommending to extend the contract out to October 31st, 2026. To allow them some time to drill this well, hopefully either this fall before the snow flies or maybe early next spring, and be able to get the final report submittals in on time. You will find a recommended motion at the bottom of, once again, page 43. And if there are questions for the sponsor, I believe Kim Tippett is planning on joining remotely. Perhaps Jewel Smith would also be joining. And then Ryan Erickson at Sunrise Engineering is the engineering consultant that Happy Valley has retained for help on this project. So there may be a Sunrise Erickson joining on the line. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Anyone have any questions?
I have a quick question.
Commissioner Somi Dalton.
Thank you, George, for your report. The abandoned wells thing, is this our new way of getting around the abandoned wells problem by just saying, okay, we're going to say you're going to own it and have it contract directly with the sponsor and then say you own it? And why aren't we going 50-50 like we are on everything else? Are we still staying at the 75-25 here?
Mr. Chair, both good questions. The first thing about this that I would point out is the groundwater grant program has always kind of been a tool in the toolbox. And yes, I think that you will increasingly find that we're looking to that to be the tool that the commission doesn't end up with an idle well, right? Because the sponsor owns this, and the commission doesn't bear any responsibility for the future maintenance of it. Also, it's important to recognize the timing of which this application came in originally. So we're talking about a 2022 project. And so that was a time when we were really thinking about, funding at a different level than traditional construction projects, which are now going at 50-50. The language in statute merely says that the sponsor must provide at least 25%. So if the commission would like in the future with groundwater exploration grant to talk about funding at a different level, we certainly can do so. I haven't put a whole lot of thought into that just because of the basis of what that separate legislative block appropriation is, right? And we're sitting on a balance right now of $1.2 million. That funding model works a little bit differently than the, annually we have a certain budget that we need to play within. But most certainly, I'm sure the director and I would consider a conversation about what the funding structure could be in the future for groundwater grant.
Mr. Chairman, just one question. Did Osmond finally, did they come into the district? I know that at one point that was kind of like a fluctuating thing, but are they both in the district now?
Mr. Chair, in response to Commissioner Anselmi Dalton, yeah, they've successfully managed to all fold together. And it took some doing, and you're right, there was some back and forth on that. So it was very successful. I think that's a great part of what we can illustrate here is, getting some funding on the table that allows some people to, say, here's how we're improving, here's how we're benefiting the system. It gives them some leverage in negotiating a larger community system.
Thank you, George. Are there any other questions for George, or do we have a motion? Commissioner Glick?
I make a motion. I move that the commission approve the second amendment to the Happy Valley Water and Improvement District groundwater exploration grant contract.
A motion, to have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Glick, second by Commissioner Choma. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next agenda item are construction closeout memos. These do not require commission action, just information. So I'd hand it over to Bill.
Chairman, Commission, Bill Brewer, Deputy Director of Construction, here with some closeout memos. Going to be coming forward to you a bunch with some closeout memos as we're actually getting some construction projects finished up, and some of these are fairly old ones that we're wrapping up. Post-COVID, we had a really good period for a short period of time where we got some incredible bids, and then our bids went ridiculous and we postponed a lot of projects. But we're moving along. This summer has been very busy for the construction staff, with multiple projects being awarded this year and moving forward to close out. So get started here. The first project here is the Lander Storage Tanks and Pump Station. This is for the city of Lander. And basically this project replaced 3 failing tanks with 1 new large tank and upgraded their pump station and installation of a new transmission main to make this whole system work within their system. This was originally a 67% grant project because this is from 2019, with the sponsor covering 33% of the costs. The engineering firm hired was HDR. They came in a little over $654,000 to complete the engineering and construction management on this project. We received 2 bids for completing the project. High Country Construction was the winning bid. They came in slightly under the engineer's estimate for the cost. So in the end, the final project cost came in a little over $10 million, with just shy of 6.8 million coming from the commission. And we will be looking at reverting just a little under $225,000 to account one from this project. So overall, the project was kind of slow and delayed, but in the end, ended up being a good project and coming in slightly under budget. Any questions on Lander?
Have any questions for Bill on this,
Chairman.
Commissioner Lick?
Thanks, Bill, for all your help on that. I just want everybody kind of give everybody a little information. You know, back when we were trying to get this project started, the roof on the old tanks, they were getting ready to fail and cave in. We had a bad winter. It was going to cave in. So, and luckily it didn't. We had a fairly mild winter, which really helped us out. The tanks and water line improvement for the, pumping station was really critical for our area, because this is where our hospital, it gets our water. And if the tank would have failed, we would have been out of hospital or anything else. So just thanks to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else have any questions or comments for Bill? Okay, thank you, Bill.
So we'll move on to the Northwest Rural Water System Improvements 2022 project. This was for the Northwest Rural Water District, and it was a tank installation. Essentially, this installed 3 smaller tanks to the system to aid flows within a portion of the system. Northwest Rural Water has been doing this throughout their system, where they install these small tanks in certain areas because there's such a large area up there that they cover. They strategically place smaller tanks in different areas to make sure the flow works without their system. So this one was completed. The original appropriation on this project was $884,400 at a 67.33% grant. And this was also account one funds. In the end, the cost of this project did go up. However, the sponsor, so there was a second appropriation from sponsors contingency funds. So the original, I should go back. The original legislation was a little over 700,000. There was an additional 184,000 of sponsors contingency funds added. And then the sponsor also received some ARPA funds through the SLIB office. So in the end, this project ended up at about 53% funded from water development and about 46.8% funded by other funds. Tri-Hydro was the engineer. Their total fees came in about $171,000 for doing their work. Wilson Brothers Construction was the ultimate winner. Again, only one bid was received, which is partially the reason for the increased cost on this project. So the contract amount was above the engineer's original estimate. And like I said, that was covered by both sponsors contingency funds and ARPA funds through SLIB. So in the end, the total project ended up at $1.56 million. WWDC's share was a little over $828,000, which represented 53.2% of the project. And in the end, we will be reverting about $56,000 to account one sponsors contingency funds. So.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone have any questions for Bill? Okay, go ahead and move on.
Good. Thank you. So we're going to move on to the Riverton Valley Irrigation District Rehab 2028 project. This was rehab work done due to a flood that occurred and basically took out one of their large canals, some disturbance along the river. So this project was a 25% grant, matching federal funds of 75% grant. To do some rehab work on rehabilitating both the canal and some vegetation, some erosion control features, etc. following that flood. So a little different project than we would normally run. Sage Civil Engineering was the engineer for the project. Their final costs were a little over $126,000. We had 3 different portions of the construction project completed. And those, we didn't have a real good engineer's estimate on those. They basically just went out to bid for the different portions that needed to be repaired. So it shows up kind of that the engineer's estimate and the cost was the same because there was never really a true engineer's estimate on this one, on what these costs would cost. But the work was finally completed and rehabilitated. Final project cost was about 1.25 million. The water development funding provided was a little over $312,000, and we will be reverting $230,400 to account 1 for this project. So the project is closed out at this point.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone have any questions or comments regarding the Riverton Valley Irrigation District rehab? Okay, Bill.
Okay, we'll move on to the final closeout memo. This was for the Wind River Intertribal Council Rehabilitation 2018 project. This was the sponsors kind of a combined Eastern Shoshone and Northern Arapaho tribes through the Office of the Tribal Engineer that manages this. This project replaced 3 structures within the irrigation system. It replaced, not that this means much to anybody, but it replaced structures 10C, 37C, and 14B-44. Overall, this project kind of went out of control on costs. Some of that was, had a lot of problems with getting contractors to bid the projects. So several of the projects were rebid several times and often receiving only 1 bid even after multiple bids. In the end, the Bureau of Indian Affairs said they would cover the additional costs. So the project moved forward. So in the end, Water Development Commission's funds were dropped down to 11% of the total project. So we essentially used up all the funds, but only at 11% of the project costs. So $929,000 was originally appropriated. The sponsor obtained about $7.5 million in matching funds to go with that $925,000. We had 2 different engineers work on the 3 different structures. That was Dowell, and they came in at a little over $118,000 for their work. And Sage Civil Engineering came in a little under $46,000 for the portion of work they did. We had 3, like I said, 3 structures. They were each constructed at different times. So 71 Construction completed 1, LCI Trucking completed the second one, and Ryman Corporation finished the 3rd project. So the total final project costs came in slightly over $2.3 million, with water development funding share being just under $840,000, and we will be reverting a little over $89,000 to account 1 on this project. So is there any questions on this?
Any questions?
Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, and that's all I have.
Director?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, more or less the last agenda items discussion. I originally didn't have anything to discuss here, but just kind of reflecting in my mind as we're listening to some of these project closeout memos in Midvale, for example, we're hearing price tags of $65 million, $11 million, $16 million. And then also hearing your questions about critical aging does that fall into critical aging? You know, when we originally started talking about that or had some of that report come out, just the top 30 structures were estimated at $200 million. We're realizing some of those cost estimates were probably low. Goshen Irrigation District being a good example of that. So maybe that's 300 million. And where we're looking at several thousands, 2,000 plus irrigation structures in the state of Wyoming that were deemed to be in poor or failing condition. you jump to billions of dollars. You remember in August, the interim topic that Select Water Committee had in regards to aging irrigation and municipal infrastructure. And then you start talking about the municipal side, and we don't have a great handle on that, the need for these asset management plans to get a better feel for that. But some of the Society of Civil Engineering, ASCE, put out a report nationwide. EPA estimates $625 billion worth of water infrastructure needs over the next 20 years. So again, talking probably billions of dollars in Wyoming potentially. And I really just, again, think back, I'm not complaining, but water development has a limited budget, right? Limited revenue. It's based on the severance tax as a percentage of that's capped at a certain amount. We've got these non-project demands, Board of Control, the one we always talk about, $9 million a year. So if we're just running the strict numbers of our revenue from the severance taxes and interest on the active balance of the accounts, and not thinking about kind of how we carry over money and just the numbers year to year, we're looking at maybe $14 million a year between account 1 and account 2 to do projects. So the reason I bring that up is because we also had a conversation in August from Senator Hicks about forest health and water yield. And I think that's great. It's a good idea. But I think there's also interest from folks to pull that into the water development program as another funding eligibility. So that's going to be a conversation coming up in November. That interim topic will be discussed again. So I just would request that you guys give that some thought between now and November, and the current demands we have, the potential additional demands, to be able to have a good conversation on that on behalf of the Water Development Commission. So just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you, Director. I was thinking similar of things that maybe could be discussed in this portion of the meeting. And probably in the last couple of days, I've heard more of our commissioners comment about the cost of things. Commissioner Assembly Dalton today, Commissioner Cayley, on some disparity in some of our proposal costs. And one of the things that I have felt maybe we need to back up once in a while and take a hard look at, and I'll throw out I won't name names, but everyone will know what I'm talking about, a project that involves a tunnel that I believe probably could have been accomplished at less cost. It would have been gone about differently, and probably would have required some maybe possibly some legislation or something to happen. But excavation versus boring, because you and I, Jason, I've talked about that, and some other commissioners have brainstormed that. I think we're going to have to start thinking outside the box. Commissioner Pence commented on the size of the irrigation district that he's part of there in Midvale, and I think the Shoshone/Deaver combination runs a close second to the size of his, and both of us rely on diversion dams on the river that are similar in size and structure, and we're not talking 2 million to rebuild them. We're talking 75, 90, 100 million, who knows, with the cost of things today. So it's a item of concern, and all these structures are the same age. All these projects were built at the turn of the 20th century and shortly thereafter. They're all failing at the same time. I don't know how they built them back then, because I don't know where the money came from back then. Some of it was Bureau funding in the early days of the Bureau, but a lot of it wasn't. A lot of it was private funding, entrepreneurs. Buffalo Bill Cody, he tried to build the dam by himself or with his investor friends, and then he was going to sell off the water. He was a businessman. That was his model. But we're going to have to start doing some serious considering how we're going to pay for these projects. And the failure of these projects is catastrophic, not only economically, but personally for all of us that rely on that water. We look at the cost of these municipalities. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but what's the cost per tap of some of this work that we're doing? Who's going to foot the bill? We don't have the revenue unless we convince the legislature to take it from somewhere else and give more to water development. We don't have it. That's the end of my speech. Anyone else want to add to it?
Chairman
Commissioner Glick.
No, I've been on this commission for a while, and I know when I first got on here, there was quite a bit of money to be spent. And I think that, a lot of the projects that we did really helped out the state, helped out and it was good for the public. That was one of the main things we always was made sure of. I'm glad we finished some of these projects back then, because now they're probably 2 or 3 times as much to complete nowadays. I know we get worried about spending money and stuff, but if I'm going to spend $1 today, it would cover the project. But now if I wait 10 years, it might take $3 to cover that same project. That's what I'm, concerned about, is that the cost of materials and engineering and construction management, and, all of the labor and everything, it's gone up exponentially. This is a concern to me because a lot of our people in our areas, they don't have a lot of money that can cover these big projects, and a lot of the tax base isn't even there to do that. We're in such a rural area. I don't want to stop doing these bigger projects, and I know it's critical thinking to see what it's going to take, some critical thinking to get the budget down a little bit on these projects. But I'm worried that if we don't start doing them now or keep going, that later on it's just going to cost us way too much. Then it'll be probably not being able to be done. And I do know that the critical infrastructure in the state is, like, some of these places are dilapidated. They're almost condemned. I think, and in my opinion, I think Wyoming's going to prosper more than most states, because we have some of the best water. We have some of the best open areas. We have some of the cheapest land. And I think people that are living down south are going to be wanting to move farther north because of the water. I think this is going to be some prime area. So if we could put some time into it, look at what we can do for our state, for our people, then we're going to prosper more than most in the United States, I think. Just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Mead, are you saying that Senator Hicks is proposing that we take this money for this fire protection fund to come out of water development instead of using it? The state has to pay for fires now, essentially, right? I mean, is that where we're headed on this proposal of his?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Anselmi Dalton, I don't think it's the fire protection necessarily. It's the thought of, I've heard folks say, our largest reservoir is our forests, and the management, the proper management of those forests, and maybe, I guess some would term it as a mismanagement over decades, has led to less runoff. So forest health treatments, not clear cuts, but cutting trees and things like that, and the additional water yield that could come off of those forests by doing that. I think the suggestion in August was that there's language in the existing water development program statutes that, if read how you want to read them, would probably lend to that being an eligible project. And I think there's desire to make that explicitly clear that forest health treatments would be eligible in the water development program. After some conversations, I've heard numbers of $1,800 an acre for forest health treatments, and there's a lot of acres out there. So that adds up real quick. So I think that's the thought. It's more of the forest health treatments associated with then the additional water yield that would come off of those. And I think a lot of this is probably driven by the Colorado River compact and issues, and trying to figure out how we can solve that. But that was a conversation we had in August, and that's going to be another conversation we have here in November as those interim topics continue and potentially turn into legislation for this next session that would define more explicitly, I guess, the eligible type projects for the water development program.
Follow up, Mr. Chair. So then you're saying, or do you have some ideas of alternatives? I mean, obviously, we don't have the funds. We have increasing demands, and so obviously we don't want to see that come out of our budget. We also want to get rid of the state engineer's office out of our budget, and I thought we were kind of getting some favorable momentum to have it be out of general funds, but perhaps I misunderstood the way we were going in August.
Madam Chair, I don't have any great ideas on the forest health. Again, that's a little out of our expertise, right? We're water developers and more the infrastructure side of things. The forestry division has much more expertise associated with that, and so I'll leave it up to those folks to probably talk that. As far as Board of Control, we'll just kind of have to see how the legislative session goes and what the appetite is for that. But as far as I know, there's no plans to request that be put back on a general fund at this point.
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman, and I as resources become scarce, and it's hard to decide what to do next. And I really think the projects like the aging infrastructure assessment really help us define priorities, and there's an attempt to do that more on the municipal side, like you say, and it kind of just goes to really support. I may be somewhat of a lone wolf in this, but the planning side of things, because if you have good plans up front, it helps you define your priorities, and as things get tight, we just don't rush off and just throw money at that next diversion, but where does that diversion fit in the larger picture? And that comes from planning. So thank you.
Jason, can you kind of give us an overview of how that started, where they take the Board of Control out of our account and how much we've spent?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's always been kind of a budget balancer that the legislature has used in the past. The latest, well, I think it was in the early 2000s, 1992 to about 2002, that was taken out. So 10 years worth of budget for the Board of Control. I don't remember what their budget was. Again, I guess part of that conversation is every time state employees get raises, every time lease agreements go up on properties, vehicle values go up, all those hydrographer commissioners out there in the different field offices, then that budget keeps going up. And then again in 2017 until current, that has been brought or taken out of account one. Since the beginning of time, everything before that and in between was always at a general fund. We did get the one-time refund last year, biannual refund, if I remember right, and about amount of roughly $16 million. So I don't know, David, if you have anything else you want to add. Okay. So, but annually that's $8.6 million or $7 million, I think. 8.7 is the budget for the Board of Control this year. So, yeah.
We have a multitude of issues, I think, that are on all of our minds, and all of them have to deal with, come back to money. But I kind of wonder if maybe during a workshop, we couldn't have a little bit of a brainstorming session. The cost of these projects, I don't know if it's possible to somehow convince the contractors and some of the others, people out there, that they need to start sharpening their pencils. The cost of these irrigation projects in particular is just what we talk about $100 million like we used to talk about
$1,000. We just talk about these giant numbers, and I don't know how we're going to pay for these projects and continue to pay for them. And when you have these conversations, someone will say, well, we'll get some federal funds for part of this. Well, I don't know if those federal funds are going to be available either. So in the long run, when you look at the life of these and the economic impact over 100 years, or, that's the argument that people will come back to, say, but if we don't do this, look at that long-term economic impact and other impacts as well. So the projects are absolutely important, but how we're going to pay for them, we're going to have to start thinking differently than I believe we have in the past. So I would like to maybe have a discussion of some kind, a brainstorming session of some kind in a workshop, and maybe even with some of the select water around robin of some kind. See if someone has some ideas to help with some of these concerns and cost estimates and getting the costs to a point where they're a little more reasonable and affordable and can stay within budget. I don't know if that happens soon or later or when, but I wouldn't think it would be worth our time to at least try to do that.
Mr. Chairman, we'll give that some thought. November tends to be a pretty busy meeting, so I don't know if we'd have time then, and then that pretty quickly gets us into next year, and at what point next year is the best, but we'll definitely keep that on our list of things that we want to talk about, and maybe have some more conversation with you on how to roll that out and get folks thinking about that.
I think another part of that too is sometimes there has to be some information out there on long-term economic benefits to some of these. It's just, I have to think some graduate student somewhere did an economic analysis of long-term benefits. And if we could come up with a matrix or a measuring stick to come, when we get to the point of having to say, we can't fund this one, but we can fund this one, we might have to be able to explain why. And it might be important to have a tool that would be helpful for that.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, that quickly gets into a very complicated question, because we've tried that. We've beat our head against the table on prioritization, and we hear people say, well, the most acres or the most people should benefit, and then you're just funding the Midvales or the Cheyennes, and how's that fair? And so I don't know that we'll ever end up with a plug and chug formula, because always common sense kind of has to come back into this and thought through a lot of different variables, but I do understand what you're saying. Mr. Chairman, just one thing, Barry helped me out and threw a piece of information up here. So as far as the Board of Control, from those periods of time that I mentioned, 92 to 2002, and then 2017 to 2022, that equated to a little over $102 million worth of water development funds that could have went towards projects that went to the Board of Control for their operations.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, future meeting schedule. So the November meeting, as we just mentioned, is going to be in Casper at the Oil and Gas Commission. We've got it November 4th, 5th, and 6th currently. I was just talking with the Legislative Service Office about that in regards to the Select Water Committee. And they're going to have, I believe, 5 draft bills that they want to discuss as part of their interim topics. And I'm assuming this forest health idea. So they're going to need, I think they're thinking probably a half a day. So from the applications we've received for level 3 construction projects as of September 1, we're looking at a pretty similar number of projects as we had last year. And if you recall, last year we shoved it all into one day, and I think everybody was getting a little cranky by the end of the day, and we all had pizza in our hands trying to get through it and eat at the same time. So the thought right now is we'll probably try to do some portion of the recommendations that first half a day on the 4th, the afternoon of the 4th. We may end up early. We may have some updates on projects like we discussed. If there are some updates we can provide, Laprelle, Goshen, different things like that, to fill in some time. And then day 2 would be, again, more recommendations. And because we're splitting them, We may end up a little early that day, so I've reached out to LSO again. Is there any way, if we do end up middle of the afternoon or right after lunch, can they move any of their interim topics earlier on that second day instead of the third day? But I don't know if they'll be able to do that. And then the third day would be committed to just interim topics. So probably a half a day or shortly after lunch, we'd finish up. And I would really encourage you, even though it's only the Select Water Committee meeting that third day, to participate in that for reasons I just mentioned as part of our discussion and some of the other things that would be of interest to you on those interim topics. So encourage you to stick around for that.
Thank you. Jason, I have a question on interim topics. Do you know, is there a proposal for funding for this forest health as an interim topic?
Mr. Chairman, I have not seen the draft bill yet. Again, the discussion at August was just the clarification of what's eligible for the water development program. I don't know if there will be any funding associated with that bill or not.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any more questions for Jason? I have a motion to adjourn. Motion's made.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone want to stay longer and oppose this motion? Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you guys for participating in all the interviews too. I didn't thank you guys.